Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by Ray Ora.
Hey, everyone.
Jonathan Voico.
Hello, everybody.
Writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer-Burnett.
Great to be here.
And most importantly, of course, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a few predetermined topics we got lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show, that's when we take your comments and questions. If you have a thought, theory, opinion, question, or an issue you'd like us to discuss, go ahead and fire it on into our tip link at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And here's the great news about this tip link. It's actually good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you happen to be listening to our podcast, either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice, or if you're watching the show a little bit later in the day when we're not live, you can still send in a question. And if you send one in when we're not live, we'll just get around to answering it on the next episode, provided we deem it appropriate to be used on the show. All right, guys. With that all down, let's get things started off here with today's show, shall we? We're going to start off with this. You know, listen, I am for 6 years now, 7 years, I've been saying Kathleen Kennedy should leave as the head of Lucasfilm. Again, to me, the two biggest jobs of the head of the studio is to have a plan for what you're doing, which she has exhibited she does not have, and your ability to constantly be on the same page with your creatives, which, you know, with the 45 various projects that have come and gone and fallen apart and all that kind of stuff, proves she has not done that. Now, I'm no Kathleen Kennedy hater. I think she belongs as a first ballot Hollywood Hall of Famer. Steven Spielberg calls her the greatest producer of all time. But hey, even the best of people aren't necessarily great for every job, and I don't think this has been the right job for her. But I've always also contended that when we give her much deserved blame for failures that happen on her watch, we should also not hesitate to give credit when credit is due. And let's be honest, whatever state Star Wars is in, it has had a number of wins along the way, and she deserves some credit for that. One of the people who has decided to really double down on that is Andor creator Tony Gilroy. Now, of course, Gilroy has just given us the best thing, anything with the Star Wars name on it since the original trilogy. Andor is simply the best Star Wars that Star Wars can be. It's phenomenal. Absolutely incredible. And Tony Gilroy says it's because of Kathleen Kennedy. Now, this is what he said in a Vanity Fair interview discussing the success of Andor and Kathleen Kennedy in it. He says this: Andor creator Tony Gilroy stands up for Kathleen Kennedy, saying, "She has protected the show and protected me. When we started challenging Kathy just kept saying yes. Oh, I'm going to put the first scene in a brothel. Okay. I'm going to have them kill 2 cops. Okay. We want the production designer from Chernobyl. Okay, good idea." She backed our play and got everything that we were doing. We've been through everything, she and I, on this. All the good and all the bad. There is no show without her. For all the shit that she takes online, it's just insane. This show exists because she forced it to happen. What a tough job she has, man. All right, look. I am absolutely not going to sit here and say this justifies Kathleen Kennedy still having the job. I'm not. But again, I always think, when I do a movie review of a movie that I really liked, I'll usually start off by talking about the negatives first. And when I review a movie I really hate, I'll try to start off by talking about whatever good things were in there. I think it is important that to have valid criticism of something, you have to be real. And the reality is, Kathleen Kennedy has done some good at Star Wars. Do I think her handling of the property has been more negative than positive? Yes, but that doesn't mean we ignore the positive. And listen, if we're, including myself, are going to give her a lot of crap for a lot of the fiasco and circus things that have happened at Star Wars, then we also have to be real enough to say, tip of the cap, good job. Because according to Tony Gilroy, I mean, he just straight up says, there's no show without Kathleen Kennedy. She's had my back. She forced this show Andor into being. And she was with me every step of the way, and she made it. And again, this does not change my mind that she should not necessarily be the head of Lucasfilm. But credit what?
I don't know how that just bumped, but that just bumped.
No,
That's a Freudian slip.
I didn't even touch the button.
give credit
That's what she said.
where credit is due. And according, again, to Tony Gilroy, a lot of credit for what many of us are calling the greatest thing Star Wars has ever done since the original trilogy. Gilroy says a lot of the credit goes to her. So you know what? I still think she should be shown the door. But on her way out, I'm going to thank her for a couple of things. Thank you for The Mandalorian. Thank you for, I remember, because John Favreau told the story on stage at D23. He said John Favreau brought the idea of Mandalorian to Kathleen Kennedy. She had a stack of 100 other pitches, and she saw what he wanted to do with it. And as he was going out the door, it was Kathleen Kennedy. John Favreau tells the story. It was Kathleen Kennedy that said, whoa, wait a minute. I want you to partner with Dave Filoni on this. I think this is something Dave Filoni would work really well on, and I think you two would work really well together. So as she's being shown the door, I'm going to thank her for Mandalorian. I'm going to thank her for The Force Awakens. I still don't care what anybody says. I think that movie's great. I'm going to thank her for Rogue One. I'm going to thank her for Rebels. Rebels was under her. Sure. But I'm absolutely going to thank her for Andor. I'll still hold the door for her as her on her way out, but I'm going to thank her for those things. Anyway, Rob, credit where credit's due. You and I loved Andor. We adored it. And according to Tony Gilroy, other than maybe himself, the most credit belongs to Kathleen Kennedy. Anyway, how do you interpret his phrasing here?
Well, I think I totally believe him, but I think Tony Gilroy is the perfect creator that Kathleen Kennedy works best with, in that he's a consummate filmmaker, consummate writer, director, producer. He's like you say, what do you call it? #1 Hall of Famer. You know, he's the kind of guy that Kathleen Kennedy needs, that she doesn't have to micromanage. She understands, okay, you're the creator, you're the visionary. What do you need? You know, because a great producer provides, and if you look at all the people she's worked with, whether it's Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg, the thing that I've always been bothered by online when people criticize her, because I've been a staunch supporter of hers, and I said, look, a great producer facilitates the production of a movie. If you have an actual working producer, they not only cultivate the material, but they find, if you're working with someone like a Spielberg, you don't have to worry about the creative. He's going to take care of that. What you need to do is provide everything he needs to facilitate the vision you want him to facilitate.
Exactly.
And so Tony Gilroy says, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Kathleen, that's music to Kathleen Kennedy's ears, because there's no, I don't know. I know. Tony Gilroy knows. You want the production designer in Chernobyl? Great. I'll get him for you.
Yeah.
That's what
and a good producer can get them for you.
Yeah, and for her, she knows that this guy does not need me to hold his hand. I don't need to check in with them. I mean, I'll check in with them. I'll look at the dailies or whatever. But that is she's used to working with people at that level. And, you know, also I would say, while it didn't like change the world, I think Skeleton Crew is worth
It was delightful.
celebrating.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Skeleton Crew's another one I should have had on my list. It's not Andor, but I really enjoyed
it's a
Skeleton
totally
Crew.
different thing with a different audience, but I think it was successful in it. They set out to do something and they succeeded in doing what they set out to do. And I would say that is another look. Andor blew me away. The last 6 episodes of Andor are peak TV. It's some of the best science fiction television, not just Star Wars, but just TV in general. And I think it's great. It's just too bad that we didn't have filmmakers like a Tony Gilroy who wanted to do a Star Wars movie that came in with that kind of vision. And, you know, another thing, that he came in and helped out on Rogue One and facilitated that, and that movie made over $1 billion. And
some people will whisper that he saved Rogue One.
Yeah,
I don't know. That might be an exaggeration, but yeah, he had a lot to do with Rogue One.
Yeah, and he had a lot to do with Rogue One, so she already knew. And, you know, he wrote and directed movies like Mike. I love Michael Clayton.
Oh, it's so good.
I love
so
that
good.
movie. And you look at that guy, and he did a Bourne film. I mean, he's done stuff that he's elevated material that could have gone elsewhere. But what I love is that guy has no F's to give. And when he goes online or when he makes that comment about Kathleen Kennedy, he knew what he was doing. He was defending somebody that really helped him make what he wanted to make the way he wanted to make it. And in his eyes, he worked directly with her and he knows what's up. So he had no reason. I don't think that guy ever cares what anybody else has to say. He tells it straight.
Yeah.
I've loved, one of the great things is watching him on this press tour for this show. I love listening to him speak because he is on top of his game.
You know what he also kind of reemphasized this whole thing?
And by the way, his two brothers worked on the show too.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things that this jumps out to me in this is that when Kathleen Kennedy has her high points, it's when she's functioning as a producer.
Yeah.
And it's her low points always seem to come in her role as studio head. You know, again, the two main problems I constantly point out: no overall plan for the general direction of the universe, and her inability to get on the same page with her filmmakers or hire filmmakers who have the ability to get on the same page with her. Those are the two most important jobs as a studio head. She's constantly fumbled the ball on that. But when it just comes to her work as a producer, that's when she tends to have her time to shine. And listen, I'll tell you what, I said she should have been gone 6 years ago. But if the only good thing were to come out of her 6 additional years of her at the helm is Andor, I'll say worth it. I'll say the hot garbage dumpster fire that was The Rise of Skywalker. If I had to go through that so I could get Andor, I might say it's worth it. Because Andor is pretty damn good. And if Tony Gilroy says he couldn't have done without her, I'll take his word for it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Tony Gilroy's coming straight up and saying there's no Andor without Kathleen Kennedy. She forced this show to happen. Are you willing, like, if you're somebody like me who has been saying for a long time she needs to go, are you also, though, willing to give credit where it's due and say, hey, kudos, give the flowers to Kathleen Kennedy on this? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You guys will remember at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in the post-credits scene, after seeing Star-Lord with his grandfather, the screen goes black and the words come up, Star-Lord will return. Well, when? Where? How? Obviously, it wasn't in Thunderbolts. You know, he could have been an interesting member of the Thunderbolts. Now that I think about it, Peter Quill could have been an interesting member of the Thunderbolts. But, I mean, obviously it wasn't in Captain America. As of right now, his name has not been brought up for Avengers Doomsday. Well, now, according to a report that's going around, the next Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord appearance, could actually be in a Marvel iteration of the Annihilators. This comes to us from the folks over at Superhero Hype, who wrote the following. Industry scoopers claim that Annihilators, and in this case, they're referring to Daniel Rickman. Industry scoopers claim that Annihilators movie, headlined by Chris Pratt as Peter Quill / Star-Lord, might be in the works at Marvel Studios. Speculations about a potential project based on the Annihilators team from Marvel Comics have been around for a while, though the studio's yet to officially confirm the project. Hollywood scooper Daniel Richmond took to Patreon recently and claimed that Marvel is developing an Annihilators movie. If this turns out to be true, it could be an important entry into the reportedly planned next phase of the MCU alongside Black Panther 3 and the X-Men reboot. It just goes on to say that Pratt last appeared in the MCU in 2023's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 by ending with him being with his dad. Now, anyway, they go on to kind of talk about the Annihilators in case you haven't heard of them. In the comics, after Star-Lord's death, so obviously this would still be very different. After Star-Lord's death, Cosmo the Space Dog decided to form a collective that would prevent galactic wars and protect the galaxy from various threats. The team comprised of Cosmo, Quasar, Ronan the Accuser, Gladiator, which that's a character we've not seen on the big screen yet, Beta Ray Bill, Silver Surfer, and Icon. That's kind of a powerful team.
Yeah. Very powerful
That's
team.
a very powerful team.
Although Cosmo's on the Guardians, so they'd have to rewrite.
Yeah, Cosmo's still with Guardians. Ronan is dead.
Yeah.
But that's never stopped anything in the MCU.
Unless you use the female Ronan, basically, from what's it called?
No, didn't she die too? From the Marvels?
Oh, maybe.
I can't remember. That was too unremarkable. The
I'm
film.
still stuck on the Singing Planet. I don't know.
The musical Planet.
Yeah.
So the lineup would probably be different. But you know what? I think here's why I like this idea, Rob. I think the character of Star-Lord works best in an ensemble. Leading the ensemble, yes, but you've got to have the right cast of characters around him for the Star-Lord character to really work. And I think something like this, other than a Star-Lord movie or a Star-Lord Disney Plus series, I think this is a good idea. Now, again, I think the lineup would be completely different. I don't expect we would see, although Gladiator's on the table. I mean, Gladiators, we haven't used Beta Ray Bill yet.
I'd love to get a hot toy of Gladiator, to be honest.
He's pretty cool. But anyway, what do you think about the idea of, I mean, again, take this with a grain of salt. And really, we should have brought up the disclaimer thing that this should be filed under the rumor mill, since it's not from one of the studios reporting it. But just for the sake of discussion, what would you think about the idea of us next seeing Peter Quill in an Annihilator?
Well, obviously they would, they talked about James Gunn being in charge of the cosmic part of the MCU, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are kind of all that we got. A little bit of Carol Danvers too.
Yeah.
I would love to see this, and if they're going to bring in the X-Men, let's see the Shi'ar Empire. Let's see lean into all of that, and maybe bring back Ego the Living Planet. I would love to see a trilogy of cosmic MCU trilogy with all of these characters. And it's funny, the people talk about like Shalabal, the female Silver Surfer that we're going to get in Fantastic Four. I don't think she's going to survive the movie, to be honest.
Either. Yeah.
And I think that we're going to be seeing Norrin Rad joining or being in the MCU, the Silver Surfer.
He'll be the Silver Surfer of
from
another
our universe.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's part of. That hasn't been quite understood, but I would love this. I would love this. And I think I love Chris Pratt. It's funny. I went back and I told you I watched Endgame. I watched Infinity War after that. And I had forgotten how funny the scene between Thor and Star-Lord was when they found him drifting through space in Infinity War. They're in each other's face and he's all, Star-Lord's like pretending to speak like this.
Yeah.
It's a funny, and I was like, I really liked Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. I mean,
he was great in the role.
I want to see him come back, and I think that if he was trying to put this team together, there's a lot of potential there, a lot of humor, a lot of because he works both ways. He can be a serious character and he can be humorous, and I think it works really well.
It's funny, when I was sitting down with James Gunn, when we were talking about the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, and you got to remember, back at that time, Chris Pratt wasn't yet Chris Pratt. He was just Andy from Parks and Rec.
Right.
And then they announced that he was going to be Star-Lord. And I remember asking James Gunn, like, how did you come up with that? And Gunn's was like, to be honest, I didn't come up with it. He said, our casting director, and I forget her name. So
Sarah.
I honestly, I wouldn't remember it even if you told me. But he said, from our first meeting, she said to me, I want you to meet with Chris Pratt. And Gunn said, the tubby guy from Parks and Rec? Nah. And then they went on with their casting process. He said a few weeks later, she came back. She said, you're going to meet with this person, this person, but I really want you to meet with Chris Pratt. No. A few more weeks later, James still couldn't find the guy. And like 3 weeks later, she finally said to him, I've scheduled the meeting with Chris Pratt. You're going to at least meet with him. And he's like, fine. He said, because already she had cast a number of the people and they were perfect. So he said, fine, if it'll keep you quiet about this, we'll meet with Chris Pratt. And he said, damn it, in 5 minutes, I knew he was the guy. So he said, really, the Chris Pratt casting, that one wasn't on me. That one almost got pushed on me, and I'm so glad it was. But he said, like, immediately, nobody embodied Star-Lord the way James Gunn had kind of envisioned him, the way Chris Pratt did. And I think just because that iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy is now over, it'd be a damn shame that if we didn't get more Star-Lord. And but do you think, here's the big question though. I think for Star-Lord to be relevant, they need to untap more of his celestial DNA.
I think they'd have to.
I don't think he can just be another Hawkeye. Another guy.
No. I totally agree with you, especially working with these potential collaborators on the Annihilators team, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why he has to leave Earth. Because it's starting to manifest in ways he wasn't expecting. That maybe he's a danger because he doesn't know how to control what's innately inside of him. He's not ready to deal with that yet. When it starts to manifest itself for something. But I have this, the Annihilation miniseries. I have the omnibus of it. It's quite good, and I think it's great. I'd love to see this.
You know what they could do, because technically his father was a Celestial.
Yeah,
you could say something like Tiamat springing from Earth reemerged some energy.
Yeah, did something
because he's part Celestial.
Yeah, so maybe that unlocks the dormant Celestial stuff which got turned off in the previous film. So maybe, you know what? The Tiamat thing, that would be another thing they could use that whole thing for. That,
or he was snapped away when he was brought back by something do with the snapping. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Then
where do people go when they've been put out of existence for 5 years?
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? According to the rumor going around by some people online, but it is kind of backed up because this is stuff we've heard whispers about before, and we do know they're bringing back Star-Lord, but Star-Lord may be brought back in an Annihilators film. I don't mind the idea. If they were doing it, who could you see as members of the Annihilators? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, following up on the absolutely wonderful Alien Romulus film for a franchise that I thought was dead, we, of course, have got the new Alien Earth on the way, and now we have an actual release date for it. And it's sooner than I thought it would be. The good folks over at The Hollywood Reporter wrote the following. Alien Earth will premiere on Tuesday, August the 12th, with a pair of episodes available to stream on Hulu at 8 p.m. So they're doing the kind of modern thing of launching the series with multiple episodes. And airing on the FX cable channels at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time / Pacific Time. International viewers can stream the series on Disney+. The 8-episode season will premiere one new episode each following Tuesday. So the thing's going to run for 7 weeks, 2 episodes to launch, and moving on from there. We also, by the way, got some new images that we haven't seen before in the article came up there. So there we go. I mean, they're on Earth. We got a little bit of a combat team there. We got Timothy Oliphant. Looking, you know what I thought at first when I saw this image? I thought, is he the Wayland guy? But no, that doesn't match up timeline-wise or anything like that. So that doesn't work. Again, him kind of leading what looks like his team out of there. Love this guy. I mean, still no look at the aliens.
No.
I mean, is he an android? I mean,
I don't think at this point in the history.
Yeah, well, they talk about that the show talks about synthetics and people, and because this is after Prometheus.
Mm-hmm.
Is it after Prometheus? Yes, it would be after Prometheus.
So
I think in the caption for this image here, the caption says that he is a,
they give him a name.
What did you say?
They gave him a name. I can't remember they would start with a K, I think. Hold on a second. The name of the is Krish.
Got it.
Kirsh.
I mean, look, Noah Hawley's made it, so I'm really intrigued by this. The premise was in there, and the premise is pretty interesting.
I'll be honest with you. Had I not seen Alien Romulus, I wouldn't give 2 drops of piss about this show. I really wouldn't. Because prior to Alien Romulus, I had believed, and it was true, that the Alien franchise was just dead. I mean, it had been so run into the ground. And then Romulus comes around. One of the most pleasant surprises in the movie theater I had last year, man. That movie was so fun. Way more fun. And they got it back to feeling like a horror film again in many ways. And they just kind of much like Prey revitalized Predator.
Yep.
Here's hoping Predator Badlands delivers as well.
And we got the animated movie coming, next month?
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm not so intrigued by the animated. That's the Killer of Killers. Because what was it? There was that Terminator animated series that came out last year. And when it was first coming out, everybody was like, oh, this Terminator thing's amazing. So I'm like, cool. And I watch it and I'm like, eh. So Killer of Killers kind of reminds me of that, but maybe it can win me over. But
Yeah,
I'm telling you what, the guy behind Legion doing this Alien film.
And Fargo.
And the guy behind Fargo. And the guy who was this close to making a Doctor Doom movie.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
They had announced that Fox had agreed and signed him to do a Doctor Doom movie like 5 minutes before Disney bought Fox and killed the project. But this guy doing Aliens, Alien Earth looks good to me. And now we know when it's coming. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this whole thing? The images and all that. Now we got a release date coming in August. I honestly thought they might push it a little bit later, but I'm glad we're getting it as soon as we are. Are you looking forward to it? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. That down. Let's move on to this. I have never once looked forward to a Final Destination movie. I like the last one they did like 11 years ago. I like that one enough. It was fine. But I've never been a fan of the series. So I didn't really care at CinemaCon this year that they were giving us a presentation for the new Final Destination Bloodlines. And it completely turned me around. I left that presentation dying to see this film. It looked so fun. I couldn't believe it. It's the first time I've ever said, my God, I cannot wait to see this movie. Well, it's Final Destination has never been a huge box office thing, but now, according to tracking, the marketing on this film has been so successful. This thing is tracking to be the biggest opening ever for the franchise. The folks over at Variety wrote the following. Final Destination Bloodlines is expected to rule the box office, trouncing fellow newcomer The Weeknd's Ramona Clef thriller Hurry Up Tomorrow, which they also did a presentation for at CinemaCon, and I have no interest for. That presentation didn't give me any interest in the film. Love my good Canadian kid The Weeknd, but this movie doesn't look like it. Anyway, and ending the 2-week reign of Marvel's Thunderbolts. Warner Brothers and New Line's R-rated Final Destination Bloodlines is aiming for a $35 to $45 million opening from 2,800 North American debut, an additional bunch of money from overseas, looking for an opening weekend and internationally $70-80 million. Anyway, the last movie that they did for Final Destination ended up only making, I think, $18 million in its opening weekend. This would be 40 to 45. Now, listen, it just so happens that I think a bunch of us are going to go to see Final Destination Bloodlines this afternoon. It's like once this show's over, going to probably have some lunch, relax a bit, and then go see it. So look for my Out of the Theater review of Final Destination. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to see it in a couple of hours. Give you that. But this looks really promising for it. And I don't know if it was listen, this kind of shows why CinemaCon is even more important than CinemaCon thinks it is. Because CinemaCon's primary job is to sell the movies to the movie theater owners. Because the better job, Matt Bellani explained it best on the studio the other day, the CinemaCon thing, where that is the place for studios to sell their movies to the movie theater owners, because the better the presentation you give, the more choice screening times, the more choice screens, the more screens you get. That's got a lot to do with the success of your film. It's not really to market the movies to the general movie-going audience. That's what Comic-Con is for and other things like that. But you do a good enough presentation, you'll get the best of both. And I honestly think that the reason we're seeing this kind of an opening weekend projection for this movie, when none of them have ever done this well, is the buzz that came out of CinemaCon for it. So anyway, Rob, they're projecting a $40 to $45 million opening, which I think is fantastic for it. Still haven't seen it, but I'm dying to see it. Where's your expectation level right now? And how do you think a $40 million thing would do for this on an opening weekend?
Well, I think there's a lot of love for this franchise because it's fun. You know, and while I think it's been 14 years since we got the last one, which was in 3D. And I think that
you're right. It was 14 years ago. I said 11, I think.
I think this franchise is the idea behind it. I think people like it. Just has a fun premise, and the Rube Goldbergian kills and the whole opening sequences. when we saw the scene that we saw that involved a vending machine and an MRI machine, and I'll leave that for you guys to see because
it's one of the greatest sequences I've ever seen.
When they showed that at CinemaCon, all of you jaded exhibitors and we were giddy with delight after this. And my friend Dieter Bastian, who I do Let's Get Physical Media with, he saw a preview of it. They screened it in Germany last week, the whole movie in a theater, and he loved it. He said it's got the greatest opening scene of the franchise and that throughout the movie, it delivers the goods.
By the way, just so you know, the Rotten Tomato scores are out. Look at this. 94%.
Wow. Yeah.
For a Final Destination movie, it's rocking a 94% right now.
Well, I think that the filmmakers really knew, and great horror is bankable at the box office, and we've seen a lot of...
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah, to a degree. We've seen a lot of great horror films come out recently that have delivered the goods that people have enjoyed seeing. We've got, I think, August's Weapons, Zach Kreger's new movie is going to be...
So excited about that.
I love Companion. I thought it should have had a much better marketing campaign. I think that movie really delivered. It's now out on VOD. You can get it on Blu-ray. Delightful film. I mean, if you can call it delightful, I just thought it was great. This looks great. And I think that this movie is... I bet it makes even more money than... I think this is going to overperform. I think. Because once people start hearing about how much fun it is... I mean, that's what, after what we saw, I mean, I would have, if they told me that it was screening the entire movie was screening at Caesars that night, after we saw that scene that we saw at CinemaCon, I'm like, we got to go. I would have gone right then and there to see the movie. And I think that this movie is going to deliver from what, and the opening scene takes place in Seattle. You got the Space Needle on the poster. The Space Needle does not get enough love in movies, and to see some catastrophic event happen in the Space Needle, kudos to you, Final Destination filmmakers. Seattle needs to be effed up. I can't wait.
To quote Dina from The Last of Us, what the fuck is wrong with Seattle?
And we've got Seattle being destroyed in The Last of Us, post-apocalyptic Seattle, and in Final Destination.
The Ring remake was in Seattle.
The Ring remake was in Seattle.
I totally forgot about that.
That's right. That was good too.
Grey's Anatomy happens in Seattle.
I know. But then we shoot everything in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And the Space Needle doesn't look very convincing as the real Space Needle.
Right.
But that's okay.
All right, guys. The question is for you. What do you think about this? This Final Destination film is getting the highest critic ratings I think they've ever got. They're projected to have the highest opening weekend they've ever had. Rob and I have seen about 10 minutes of the movie. And it was one of the funniest, most fun, crazy 10 minutes I've seen on a screen in a while. I cannot wait to watch this. Again, keep your eyes open for a little bit later this afternoon. I will be dropping my out of the theater reaction to it. But are you looking forward to Final Destination? I never have been, but I am now. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this. You know what most guys usually say after they've swiftly been kicked in the balls twice?
Got your ass.
Let's do it 4 more times. And not often do you hear that. Let's do it 4 more times. But that's what Zack Snyder wants to do to us. He wants to kick us in the balls 4 more times. Because according to a new story that's come out, not only does he have a 3rd Rebel Moon all planned out, he got 4 more completely ready to go.
Oh boy.
This comes to us and says it's coming via what's on Netflix. Rebel Moon co-writer Kurt Johnstad revealed that Zack Snyder still has big, possibly too big, plans for the saga of Rebel Moon, with the Man of Steel and Watchmen director having planned out up to 6 sequels. We've outlined movies 3, 4, 5, and 6. Very detailed outlines. And Zack has literally plotted out the whole world. We know where we can go. We've written detailed outlines. Goes on to say, and it's these epic plans that could prove a problem, as well as declining viewership and scathing reviews. The Johnstad himself wondering how exactly Snyder plans to bring his vision for Rebel Moon 3 to life. The scope and scale of the middle of the movie, and certainly the finale, I have no idea how Zack can actually film this because the scale was so massive. While we wait for any kind of official announcement from Netflix regarding the future of the Rebel Moon franchise, Johnstad went on to tease what Rebel Moon 3 will be about, while also revealing that he has no idea what the streamer is waiting for. The second movie was to find the princess, and the third movie is to make sure that the princess is where she should be, sitting on the throne and properly ruling over the motherworld. I don't know. Those decisions are way above me, like how these things are made and where the money is going to come from. All right. Let me first be on record of saying, contrary to some popular belief, I am a Zack Snyder fan. Up until Rebel Moon, there had literally only been one movie of his that I straight up did not like. And that was Sucker Punch. That was it. I have either kind of liked or absolutely loved every single one of his other movies. I'm a big fan, including the highly underwatched and undervalued The Owls of Gaul. Which is a exciting, fun, animated film that a lot of people forget that he did. Anyway, you should check it out. Rise of the Guardians, the Owls of Gaul. Go check it out. It's great. Now, when Rebel Moon was coming out, they kind of looked like trash. They didn't look great to me, but the concept was really cool. And again, I've liked every single Zack Snyder movie other than Sucker Punch. And I thought, okay, let's go. And I thought it couldn't get any worse. And then I saw the second one and realized I was wrong. It can get worse. It is some of the most inept, horrible storytelling I've ever seen on a screen with that much of a budget. It was, now listen, everybody's got bad days at the office. Steven Spielberg had 1943 and 1941 and The Terminal.
Yeah, of course.
Had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Every great has had their bad day at the office, right? But I mean, let's not pull punches here. This is epically trash. The Rebel Moon movies are epic trash, like total garbage. And I want more from Zack Snyder, but not more Rebel Moon. His vision of Rebel Moon doesn't work. So I really want to see, and most of his stuff does work, so I really want to see him move on and start doing other things. Because even there's one before that, Army of the Dead. I know you weren't the biggest fan of Army of the Dead, but I really had a good time with it. I thought Army of the Dead was a lot of fun. Not everybody agreed, and that's totally cool, but I would love to see him move off this Rebel Moon garbage and start doing something else. And listen, with the declining viewership and with the scathing reviews, I don't see Netflix pursuing this anymore. Because remember, Rob, there was going to be this whole cinematic universe. There's going to be the anime, and there's going to be all this kind of stuff. I don't know. Do you think there's a possibility that Rebel Moon 3, 4, 5, and 6 can somehow come to our screens, and would you want them to?
Well, I'm going to admit something to you, John.
Here we go.
No, I'm the kind of guy that's waiting for the Wachowskis to make Jupiter Ascending too.
Oh my God.
So, and I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding about that. I'm very, very sincere. Not kidding. That said, and look, Star Crash is a favorite of mine. The Adventures of Stella Star, directed by Luigi Cozzi. I am a fan of. I wanted to love Rebel Moon. I did, and I watched.
I know you did. You were really.
I watched both versions. We did a great Designing Hollywood on it with a lot of the team. I was pulling for this film, and I am not a Zack Snyder hater either. You know, we both love Man of Steel. I loved his remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I thought I wouldn't like. I bought Sucker Punch Hot Toys, but not for the reasons you probably think.
Exactly for the reasons people think.
So I am pulling, and I own all three versions of Watchmen on home video, and I have the 4K of Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and all the other three. I can't, John. I can't get behind this.
What?
I can't. I mean,
Ray, like you're so disappointed.
I mean, Ray gave me a Rebel Moon.
No, I never get. You bought that on your own, Rob.
I did not. Okay? You gave it for me.
That's you.
But I look. I tried. Rebel Moon was painful to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, physically painful. And while I would love to see Zack Snyder, I love the realization and the ambition of what he's trying to do. And maybe he'll get better. I just can't see Netflix jumping into this. I really don't.
But Rob,
I think Zack Snyder needs to make his pain in game.
I got to make my case to you, Rob. He said he has a whole universe planned out. You could have a whole universe action figure set of Rebel Moon.
All done in
Nothing?
slow motion.
Nothing?
I could probably get those at a flea market for 5 cents each.
Can we at least admit some of the designs are cool on
The
the
design-
Oh, some of the design
The
work
design
was
work, yeah,
fabulous.
the design work was
And
dope. It was really cool.
Yeah, the effects too, and
Hey,
some of the, without the slow-mo were great too. It's just the story
I like the cast.
was very simple. I think.
You got to
And
hand it to him, though. Unlike Lucasfilm, he's got a plan.
Yeah.
At least
he
had
has a plan and an
Give him that.
outline. It's good.
All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think? According to the story, Zack Snyder's got Rebel Moons 3, 4, 5, and 6, like completely outlined, completely scripted out that way. Ready to go. Just need Netflix to give it the green light. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it should happen. I really want to see Zack Snyder. This one was a loss. Move on. I want to see him do something else. Anyway, whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to take a few moments here and play ourselves a little game of what's more likely. A little bit earlier in the day, I jumped onto our community tab, our post tab on the YouTube channel, and I asked our subscribers, hey, you got a what's more likely scenario for us? A bunch of you fired some in. We picked out a few to address here on the show. So, Jonathan, what do we got up first?
Frank Castle's here. John, what's more likely, Andor wins a Best Drama Emmy or loses?
That's a really good question, because I said yesterday that I'm going to predict right now that Andor is going to win Best Drama at the thing. It's going to be tight with The Pit, because The Pit is fabulous. But I think Andor is going to win. But I think it's more likely it loses, not because I think any other show, I think out of all the shows, Andor has the best chance. But if you got 5 shows and one show has a 40% chance and the other 4 make up the other 50%, but much lower chances, the reality is it's Andor has a 40% chance, all other shows combined 60% chance. So I think Andor has the best chance out of all the shows, but numerically, statistically speaking, it is more likely that any one of the other ones wins. So I'm going to say it's more likely that it loses. I just think it has the best chance. Rob, what's more likely?
Well, look, I don't know what else is going to come out. I don't know what other shows are going to be coming out. I would say right now there's always a prejudice against genre shows, science fiction, fantasy, and horror. I was happy to see Shogun was undoubtedly going to win because of it was so good.
Oh, yeah, it was just phenomenal.
I would say that this is pushing back against the fact that it's a Star Wars show. But if they put out, like when you go for Emmy consideration, you have to send like an episode in. If they were to send episode 8 of this for their Emmy consideration, that's when everything goes south on Gorman, the big, I don't see how that couldn't win. That's one of the great hours of TV ever. So I think it has a good shot. So I'm going to go against my better judgment and say, yeah, I think it will win.
So you think it's more likely that
I think it's more likely it will win. I want it to win. In real life, in my heart, knowing the industry, I think probably not. But I'm going to say for this particular instance, yes, I want it to win because that's what I go to.
What's next?
We got Vix Games. Rob, what's more likely, another Mission Impossible or a Top Gun?
This Mission Impossible movie has a long way to go in terms of recouping its money. They spent a lot of money on this movie. It's really, 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 it's one of the most expensive movies ever made. So I'm going to go with Top Gun. I think Top Gun is more of a sure thing. It's more of a box office. It's more box office potential. Our boy Glenn Powell has become more of a draw since then. And I could see them doing a new Top Gun movie before I could see a new Mission Impossible.
Plus Top Gun killed it, man. Almost 1.5 billion.
Yeah, that's why I'd say so. It's more likely.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It is more likely that a Top Gun movie gets made. Not that I think another Top Gun movie will get made, but it's absolutely more likely that it'll get made because, like, to Jonathan's point that I was going to bring up, Top Gun Maverick made almost around $1.5 billion, right? Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning made 571. with the good reviews that Mission Impossible Final Reckoning is getting, not great, not amazing, but good, I don't see this movie making much more than Dead Reckoning Part 1. So what are you going to make a sequel to? One that had $1.5 billion in the box office and completely beloved, or one that's hovering around $600 million and is starting to have fans question how much they love the franchise. And again, for the record, I don't think either gets made, but I do think, Rob, I agree with you, it is more likely that another Top Gun gets made.
Even if you spun it around and said, what's more like what Tom Cruise wants to do, would it be more Mission Impossible? He would probably want to do a Mission Impossible more.
Nah, I think he'd want to do a Top Gun more.
Without any of the money or the box office involved.
Yeah, I think he'd still want to do another Top Gun more because it's like listen, Cruise is in his 60s. These movies are very physically demanding. And listen, Tom Cruise likes success. He likes success. There's a reason he didn't do a sequel to Night and Day, even though I thought Night and Day was pretty good. But there's a reason he didn't do a sequel to it. So he likes success too. Yeah, so I still think it would be Top Gun. All right, what's next?
All right. We got Lunchbox. John, what's more likely? Tarantino makes more than 10 films or Dwayne Johnson wins an Oscar?
Well, I mean, it's almost by default. This is easy. I think it's more likely Quentin Tarantino makes more than 10 films for two different reasons. One, I'm a big Dwayne Johnson fan. Dwayne Johnson's not winning an Oscar. I absolutely believe Tarantino, I've been saying this forever, ever since he said, after my 10th film, I'm going to retire. I don't believe that for a second. I think he believes it, but he's too much of a creative force of nature. He's going to be, I said this before, he's going to be done his 10th film saying, I'm done directing movies now. And then about 5 months later, he's going to be sitting in a cafe in West Hollywood somewhere, and then a little idea is going to creep into his head. And it's going to itch. And then someday he's going to pull out a pen and just going to jot something down. And it's going to continue to itch. And then before you knew it, he's going to do 12, 13, 14 films. So absolutely it's more likely that Quentin Tarantino does more than 10 films. Rob?
I think it's absolutely going to be Quentin Tarantino does more than 10 films. And you know what Tarantino's going to make? I have a theory. He's a father now. I think Quentin Tarantino is going to make a children's movie. Like a live action.
That would be interesting to see.
Like a live action, like something like Candle Shoe, like that Jodie Foster was in those, or Treasure of Matacumbe. You know, like what Disney did in the 70s. Not like the Love Bug movies, but he's going to make some kind of, I mean, I hate to use this word, Goonies. He's going to do a Quentin.
My God, get over it.
He's going to do a Quentin's going to do a kids movie, and he's going to be inspired to do it by his children. Or child. I think he has one or maybe two.
Say, are we there yet? One more time.
Because that's a challenge that I could see him wanting to take on.
But I mean, he could make that his 10th film and stop.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, he still has to do that.
This is something. This is something that he's going to be inspired to make after whatever that 10th film is.
Sounds good. So we're good. We're
His
both
11th or 12th movie is going to be a kids movie.
I still like the idea of him going into Star Trek at some point.
That was like the John Wick moment.
Oh, I love the idea of Tarantino doing Star Trek, but I don't think that's gonna. I think that ship has sailed. All right, what's next?
What is next? We got Hoopsuni Roberto. What's more likely? Blade appears in his solo film or in a different MCU movie again first?
Wow, I mean, I could see Wesley Snipes coming back and playing Blade in whatever Secret Wars movie they make.
No chance.
So I don't know, man. I don't know, but I never thought that would happen. So I think probably his solo movie. Because like you said, no chance. I think that Blade, I just want to see what that movie's going to be.
You know what? There's a part of me that really agrees with you, but I'm actually going to go the other way. I think it is more likely that we get Blade. I mean, look, Eternals doesn't count because we just heard his voice. That doesn't count. I think it's more likely that we at some point get him introduced in another movie because it is taking them so long to get this solo thing going. Kevin Feige might in his wisdom go, we've got to get Blade in front of our audiences. And it might just be maybe an Annihilators or maybe something else along those lines. It might just be easier at this point to go, let's at least get him out there in the universe. That buys us time to get the Blade film together. And we don't even need to fully understand his place in the MCU or anything like that. First, all we need to know, we just need to figure out a portion of it. to get him a role in something else. So I think at this point, it's more likely that he pops up in something else first. Maybe a Doomsday.
Maybe Midnight Suns movie.
Maybe Midnight Suns. All right. What's next?
We got Clone Davenger. John, what's more likely, Alan Ritchson playing a Marvel or DC hero?
Ooh.
It's a good one.
Listen, I like him a lot. And I've grown. I've liked him forever, but I've really grown in my belief in his acting ability. Again, Oscar winner? No, not necessarily, but I've really grown to like him in that. You know what? For whatever reason, look, he can work in either. You can take Alan Ritchson and you can drop him in either. But there's something about him and his personality, to me, that just seems to jive better with the DC brand, with the DC feel. Now, I still think James Gunn should just hire him to be the new Batman. I really do. He's got all the look, and he can pull off the suaveness. He's got the total look to be a good Bruce Wayne. He's clearly got the physicality that he could be a great Batman. I love the idea of him, but even if that's not the case, I just see him swaggering more to the rhythm of DC than I do with Marvel. Not that I think DC's better than Marvel or anything. He seems just like a better fit to me in there. Now, then you would ask me, well, John, who could he play? Obviously, my number one choice for him is to be Batman. But just play around with a lot of different things. If you want to use him as a multi-story arc villain, he could be a great Bane. Because remember, Bane is not like the way they portrayed him in that one Batman movie. Not the Tom Hardy one, but the
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, Batman and Robin. He's not some mindless killing machine, right? You get one that's more akin to the one Tom Hardy played. I think Alan Ritchson could be an amazing Bane. I've always wanted somebody to do KG Beast. I'll die on that hill. I think KG Beast is a guy who should be in there and should be around there somewhere. But again, it's just a guy who fits in there more. So I'm going to say more likely that we see him in a DC film. Rob, what about you?
I think I'm going to go opposite. I think there's some place to go in the X-Men universe for Alan Ritchson.
A lot of mutant characters.
Like he could play Omega Red, or
I like that one.
Right, or something along those lines where but that's kind of like KG Beast, Omega Red or somebody like that, somebody that has that physicality. And there's a lot of X-Men characters. I mean, I'm thinking like X Factor.
I could see him like all properly dressed up and stepping into a ballroom of the Hellfire Club.
Yes. I mean, that's look, the Hellfire Gala. Except the last one,
he could be one to go.
Yeah, I mean, although you'd want to see him.
That's the thing. I'm just saying, if nothing else.
No, I mean, bring in Alpha Flight. I don't know why they don't make. How can they haven't made an Alpha
You
Flight
talk about
movie?
the X-Men universe. Let's call back a little bit to earlier in the show. Gladiator. Huh?
Hey,
Alan Ritchson is Gladiator.
Alan Ritchson as Gladiator would be good. That would be good.
Oh, Miss Dingus McNally in the live chat just had a good one too. He'd be a pretty good Colossus.
Yes.
Alan Ritchson would be a pretty good Colossus.
I almost wonder if Hercules is slated for the Annihilators in place of Gladiator.
But we've already met Hercules.
But he might join forces with them or something. Join the team.
I don't know. I love all those casting decisions. I still think he vibes better with the DC brand, but I think you've mentioned some inspired choices.
Yeah, I can't wait for this new X-Men universe. I really am excited.
He's cast as Robin.
He's cast as Robin.
He's like super huge.
And the worst one. He's like Jason Todd. He's like the worst Robin. All right. What's next?
We got one more here. This is for Shrimpy Foe. Rob, what's more likely? The release date gets moved for Godzilla X Kong Supernova or the Legend of Zelda movie due to both having the same release date?
That's a good one.
Yeah, what is it, like March 26, 27, or 2027 or something like it's like
March 26.
March 26, 2027. Both Godzilla X Kong and Zelda. Which one moves?
I think Godzilla X Kong moves Supernova because they need more time for the special effects. I mean, that could be the same thing as true of Legend of Zelda. All I know
that's such a big.
All I know is that Japan wins either way. So
that
there
would be
you
an
go.
incredible day, actually.
Yeah, listen, this there will obviously be people who say you can Barbenheimer this. You can't. Because
Yeah.
unlike Barbenheimer, and even unlike this upcoming weekend with Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible, to have a true Barbenheimer kind of weekend, you need two films that are going after completely different
Yeah,
audiences.
there's no counter programming there.
Right? Exactly. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of crossover audience with Godzilla X Kong and a Legend of Zelda movie. Because like everybody I know is going to want to see both of those. And so there is no Barbenheimer effect there. And since they're both going after a lot of the similar demographic, one of them will move. Like we're not going to have a weekend where both of these films open at the same time.
Yeah.
Who do I think blinks? I think it's Godzilla X Kong that will blink. And you know what? Don't see that as a sign of weakness. I just think it's a good business decision. Why move? Listen, a Legend of Zelda movie, if there's anything to go by off of the Super Mario stuff, and this one's not animated, I get it. But the ceiling for box office, we already know what the Godzilla X Kong.
Yeah.
Because we've had enough movies to know, generally speaking, how much money will these movies
Unless if you put the aliens in it from Planet X,
Well,
it's
yes.
$1 billion franchise. It's $1 billion franchise.
But it's much like we were talking about, like with the Sonic thing, when people said, John, Sonic 3 is going to be $1 billion film. No, it's not. We've already seen a couple of films. We know what the ceiling is. It can be a little bit higher than that. And with the Godzilla and King Kong movies, we know generally what it can make. A live action Legend of Zelda movie with what's the kid's name? Ben Wang?
Yeah.
Which they have not announced him as that. We're just somebody brought up Ben
brought it
Wang
up
from
as a
the
theory.
upcoming Karate Kid movie and from the Long Walk movie. You put him in a link, whatever. That is a $1 billion potential movie. Godzilla X Kong Supernova is not a $1 billion potential movie. So I think the good folks over at Warner Brothers are going to look at this. They're going to realize, hey, look, Zelda is just going to make so much money, and it's going to be soaping up a lot of that audience that it's not going to leave enough for us. We need to find a new weekend with some counter programming. So I think the one that moves is Godzilla X Kong.
I just had a quick question. When we have two big powerhouses like this opening on the same day, when they move, is it usually like a matter of maybe a week, or do you think this movie is going to be like a different?
I think
month?
2 weeks minimum.
A different month, like
I think a different month. I agree with Jonathan, like 2 weeks minimum. And here's the good news. Because it's still 2 years away, there are open dates,
Yeah.
right? It's not like they have to decide about moving a movie that's only like 9 months out. There are open dates. There's even some more full weekends, but don't necessarily have another movie like Godzilla X Kong that's going to be going for the same demographic. So I think there's going to be a lot of flexibility there. I think they're the one who moves it.
So New Empire, that opened in March. I mean, how do we even know it's even going to be a summer movie like Zelda, you know?
Yeah.
Or...
Anyway, guys, that's it for our little round of what's more likely. Thank you to all you guys who sent in those scenarios for us. Once again, keep your guys' eyes open, pardon me, on our YouTube channel, because every once in a while we'll drop requests for true or false or what's more likely scenarios for you to send in. We only leave them open for like 10 or 15 minutes because so many of you guys send in so many of them. So thank you for that. And we'll play this game again next week. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? Every franchise needs its foundation, its pillars, if you will. The Wizarding World is Harry Potter and Hermione. If you look in Marvel, it was for the longest time, it was Steve and it was Tony.
And Thor.
What's that?
And Thor.
The MCU.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, the heartbeat, the heart and soul of it was Steve Rogers, the two leaders sort of thing, right? I think, but whatever. You need your cornerstones. You need many active pieces, many good pieces, but you need those anchor beings, if you will, that are there. Well, when you think DC, we all automatically think, understandably so, of the DC Trinity, made up of Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. That is the DC Trinity. But the new DC, instead of having a Trinity, They're going to have 4 pillars that they say are going to be kind of the central characters. And this came from the mouth of David Zaslav himself. And this comes to us from a report in Comic Book Movie. It says this. When you look at the major characters with that James Gunn and Peter Safran are developing, this is David Zaslav speaking, by the way, are developing with their 10-year plan around DC, that is to build asset value for us globally everywhere in the world. Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, and Supergirl. We look at those as the big asset builders and big differentiators. So not just the Trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but that 4th cornerstone pillar that they look at is Supergirl. All right. This is interesting, and it also kind of makes sense. On the one hand, you've got to have the Trinity in there. Like, I understand you can change things up, but I mean, the Trinity is the Trinity for a reason. The Trinity are the most iconic faces and names in the history of DC: Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, right? That's them. But if you're going to have a character like Supergirl, a character who is as powerful as she is, a character whose popularity in the last 6 or 7 years has really grown, both in the animation space and in the comic book pages. And the fact that they're leading out, like, we're getting a Supergirl movie before we're getting a Batman movie. We're getting this Supergirl movie before we're getting a Wonder Woman movie. I mean, as of right now, we don't even have a Wonder Woman movie announced. But they're reiterating she is one of the 4 pillars of the overall plan moving forward. I think it probably makes sense that these are going to be the characters they revolve it around. And I actually, while I got to be won over with derivative characters, you know, like you got Flash. Do we need a Kid Flash? And so on and so forth. But I mean, the story Chris Carr has talked about, the story this is based on a lot, which has so much potential and so much going for it. You got a fabulous star to be in. You got truly a rising star in the industry who you got her in there in this role. I think that makes a lot of sense. And to move it from 3 to 4 for the cinematic universe at any rate, I think it makes sense. Look, we won't know how good it is that they're going to be making Supergirl one of these pillar characters until we see the movie Supergirl. That's when we're really going to know. So I'll just say, in theory, I get it and I like it. If he had just said that it was going to be built on the Trinity, I would have got it and liked that too. But I'm okay with this. Rob, you hear this. What do you think it tells us about, or does it tell us anything about how they thinking this Supergirl movie is turning out, the overall direction of the DCEU? Again, as long as we've been talking about the DCEU, we all need to remember they haven't put out a single film yet. We haven't even got the first chapter yet. But anyway, how are you seeing this?
Well, look, I mean, that Tom King Supergirl story is great. And that's what they're adapting. And I think the fact that they, as to believe James Gunn, and I believe him when he says we don't move forward with these films until the scripts are right.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that this script, it didn't have any problems. We didn't hear that it had to go into extensive rewrites. They had a script. They moved on it. The movie's wrapped. And I mean, I think that they know. This is why I'm excited about the DC universe. They had a mandate. They had a plan. They're executing on that plan. We will know how well in July, but it seems to me that and despite the fact that you and I might have disagreed a little bit on a trailer, I was looking at it as a piece of marketing. I don't.
Trailers are trailers.
Yeah, I still think the movie is going to be great, and I'm really excited to see it. It looks so much fun, and I can't wait. But there's also a lot riding on this, and I think even before they started making these movies, they're not making this up as they go along. They know what they wanted to do. They know what this Batman movie is going to be. They already know what it is. Now, we might not know what it is, but they do. Right. James Gunn, they know what direction they wanted to go in. They probably know what storyline they wanted to adapt. They know the kind of movie they're making, whether it's Batman and Robin or Brave and the Bold, whether the hell they're going to finally announce. They know. And I think that obviously David Zaslav knows. So I think that when he comes out and says this at the upfronts, and the upfronts, I'm surprised it hasn't got more publicity than it has, because those used to get a lot more press in the entertainment press on it. But now I guess we're hearing about it, so it is getting press. But they know. And Warner Brothers, look, I think Warner Brothers is having success. They're going to have a big banger of a movie opening this weekend with Final Destination, which is New Line, but also Warner
Under
Brothers.
Warner
and they're
Brothers
coming
umbrella.
off. Sinners is still banging up the charts. I mean, it's still making a lot of money. And so Warner Brothers is in a really good place. And I think David Zaslav would like to see it continue. I mean, you've got Superman coming out. You've got Weapons coming out. Warner Brothers is in a great place. And I think this is going to be the energy. And they're going to tell you, you're going to know in July. When this movie comes out, and if it does as well as we hope it's going to do, this is the engine launching their Saturn V into orbit. And I think that I'm excited. They need to follow up.
Yeah.
You know, they got the Superman movie done. I would imagine it wouldn't surprise me to see some kind of a trailer. I don't know if they're going to play that post-credit game the way the MCU has. I would imagine that they would, because people would expect it. And apparently Supergirl does appear in Superman.
Yes.
So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're going to really make this interlocking and we see something in the post-credit sequence of Supergirl. But I think I like what I hear. I think this is important. And obviously it's interesting that they went with Supergirl first before Wonder Woman, but I think that's
before Batman.
And before Batman, but I think it's because they had the script and they had the story and they knew what they wanted to do. So that alone makes me excited about all of this, to see the planning that has already gone into this, and this plan is unfurling the way it's supposed to. I hope.
You know, I've spent a lot of time over the last year or so waxing poetic about the fact that the biggest part for Warner Brothers and DC is not how much money does Superman. Like, short-sighted people just keep thinking, no, Superman's got to be a big hit. It has to be a big hit. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because that's how short-sighted people think. Big picture people don't think about how much money does one movie make. They think about how much money does the next 10 movies make.
Right.
And I've been waxing poetic all year about how absolutely necessary it is that this Superman movie is really good. Because if this Superman movie's not good and you never get a second chance to make a first impression, this is you trying to rehabilitate the DCU's image. Sorry, James, don't mean to put extra pressure on you, but if Superman's not great, that's going to be a real big problem for them. So I've been spending a year waxing poetic about that. Not as, but also very important is something you kind of alluded to, Rob, which is awesome. Superman was great. You got to follow up. Supergirl, I'm not saying it's as important that Supergirl is great as much as Superman, because this is the first film. But if you really want to really establish your cinematic universe and really set yourself up for success, you can't have a one and then a dud. You got to have Superman be great, yes. But then almost as important, you got to follow up with Supergirl. And it's got to be good, man.
I totally agree with you. And I think that's what they're doing. And also I think what is smart, judging from what we've seen, this is going to be a family-friendly universe. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be made necessarily for kids, but I think this is designed to be a 4-quadrant, family-friendly. Everybody can see these movies. They're going to be entertaining for everyone. I think they're going to be leaning into, look, okay, is Lobo going to be in Supergirl? Sure. Is it going to be an R-rated Simon Beasley version of Lobo? I don't think so. I think they're building this universe to be the same way that, and I've said this before, and I only mean tone, like a Back to the Future. Back to the Future was a movie for everybody. Yeah, they had jokes like, was Marty McFly going to make out with his mom? But it was done in a PG context where everybody could go. There wasn't one person who saw Back to the Future and wanted it to be more edgy. You know, they made a PG movie that everybody could go see and enjoy. I see that that's what they're trying to do with this DC universe. And I think that's a great way to go. Because I think that the Snyder films, as much as I enjoyed the tone, that was not family friendly. I mean, for God's sake, even Ben Affleck said I couldn't take my kid to see Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice because it would have terrified him. And I think that there's something to be said for that. And if you make a movie like this and it's a 4-quadrant hit, and kids, it's got robots and dogs and monsters and superheroes, Lex Luthor and all this stuff, you're going to get $1 billion movie out of that because you get more people that can go. More, and kids will want to go see it multiple times. And I mean kids that are like 8. So
Yeah, but don't forget, James Gunn has said that they're not going to shy away from R-rated films.
no,
And they're-
but those will be R-rated.
Yeah, but Wonder Woman, it won't be R-rated. Supergirl won't. Lobo may be R-rated when we
Sure.
get a Lobo one, yeah.
There's also an aspect that I love that he included Supergirl, because I always thought Superman was unrelatable. That's why I never really attached myself to the character. He brought in Crypto, right? That's automatic. But then there's also an aspect where if you bring in Supergirl, there's that big brother, little sister sort of dynamic you can probably put in there.
Yeah.
And I know as a big brother, you know as a big brother, John.
Yeah.
Like that could bring some very fun, annoying, irritating, stressful situations that we could see from Superman that maybe makes him a little bit more relatable, a little bit more human than because I do want the Superman to be, for me at least, for me to relate to him.
Well, I think if you just look at the trailer from yesterday, I think James Gunn is clearly cognizant of two different things. Two of the challenges facing telling compelling Superman stories is, number one, nothing can challenge him because he's Superman. So what does James Gunn show us in the first couple of trailers? Superman having a hard time, right? So that's the one thing. The other thing is, like you said, a lot of people have said just he's kind of unrelatable in many ways. And I think in the trailers, what we've seen him is them saying, we're making Superman more relatable. He's still Superman, but he's got some of the same traits and maybe some of the same flaws that we do too. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to follow that up. But again, I just think it's really interesting that we have a Supergirl movie in production. Like, it's not theoretical. They're shooting the movie as we speak. And we don't even have an announcement on a Wonder Woman movie yet. So that's maybe that's just part of the plan. We'll find out. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Apparently, instead of just a Trinity, we have 4 cornerstones that are going to be the DCU. It's going to be Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, as expected. But also Supergirl is going to be one of those 4. It's really kind of hard to say how great of an idea that is until we see the Supergirl movie. But in general, I don't mind it in theory. How do you guys feel about it? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, it's time for us to move on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your topics and questions. But before we do, want to bid adieu to Robert Meyer Burnett. Great job as always, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'll be back tomorrow.
And
remotely.
yes, and guys, before we get on to these questions, we're going to take a quick second and thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends over at PrizePicks. Guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, PrizePicks. What a great time to be a sports fan. Basketball playoffs are on. Hockey playoffs are on. It is the perfect time to jump into the action with PrizePicks, the easiest and most fun way to turn your sports knowledge into real winnings. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made really simple. Just pick more or less on a few player projections, like points, assists, goals, and you can win up to 2,000 times your money. For example, this week, I've got Jalen Brunson for more than 24.5 points, or Jason Tatum for more than 6.5 rebounds. I love how fast and easy it is to lock in a lineup in just under a minute. Plus, they've got a couple of weekly features, like, for example, Flex Friday. If your lineup doesn't win, you get your net losses back in promo funds. And every Tuesday, check out Taco Tuesday for discounted player projections up to 25% off. So download the app today and use the code CAMPEA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CAMPEA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. And thank you to our friends at PrizePicks for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to the important stuff, which is, of course, your topics and questions. Jonathan, what we got up first?
First up, we got Jake G. One live action remake I'm hoping Disney does is Hunchback of Notre Dame. Easily my favorite of the 90s animation films. I just don't know if nowadays they'd be willing to keep it as dark. Hellfire is a banger, and I think the best villain song.
Actually, I think Jake might have sent this question in before. And I don't know how you do that one live action, because it's like, up until this point, all of Disney's live action adaptations have been family friendly. That was not a real family-friendly animated film. So if you kind of do a translation of it, I don't know that you can make it family-friendly live action. And if you can't make it family-friendly live action, I'm not sure Disney would be all that interested in it. All right, what's next?
Angry Canuck says regarding AMC. In Canada, Cineplex has just increased their Cheap Tuesday and standard ticket prices by $2 each. At Imagine Cinemas, third theater chain in size in Canada, has standard pricing at $9, Tuesdays at $5, and that's 40% cheaper than Cineplex.
Here's the thing. I don't think they existed. I just was not familiar with them. I don't think they existed in Canada when I still lived there. And here's hoping they take off, because Cineplex needs to be challenged, because their basic monopoly on movie going in Canada would be fine if they were still a good theater chain. And in my opinion, they are not. It used to be my dream to work with Cineplex theaters. Like when I was at AMC theaters and leading it to glory and success.
Glory.
My real dream was, okay, I'm going to parlay this and I'm going to show Cineplex this is what we should be doing up in Canada. And I'm going to move back to Canada and we're going to do what I was doing for AMC with Cineplex in Canada. But over the years, they've turned into garbage. Like they treat their customers like crap. Their pricing policies are outrageous. Their screening stuff, like I remember this one time I wanted to take my mom to a movie. I think I wanted to take her to see Aquaman, right? But I didn't want to see it in garbage 3D. Out of like 8 screenings they had that day, there was one screening that wasn't at least 3D. Everything else was 3D or on one of their premium screens where you had to pay an extra upcharge. If you wanted to see Aquaman in non-3D, where it's going to be a little bit cheaper, it was only like 4 p.m. in the afternoon. I've really come to see Cineplex, and if there are people from Cineplex watching, by all means, I want to love you guys again. My most formative movie-going years were in Cineplex theaters. Please reach out to me and tell me what your plan is, because as of right now, from the outside looking in, Cineplex really is the model of what movie theaters should not be. And it pains me to say that, because I again, Silver City Ancaster, man, some of my best movie-going experiences ever in that theater. I want to love Cineplex, but they just keep making it very hard to do it. Anyway, what's next?
We got Generic White Male. Fun fact about the last episode of The Last of Us: during the stalker scene, that whole area was shot in an abandoned dairy factory, and some of the rooms stored many props and costumes from Shogun.
Oh, wow.
I heard it on the After Show podcast.
I didn't realize that they used that for Shogun. Listen, that whole scene was breathtakingly. You know, listen, with all the things that The Last of Us Season 2 is doing right, and it is plenty, one of the best aspects of it every aspect of its set design. Like interiors, exteriors, everything looks mind-blowingly authentic and real and touchable and tangible. They just done such a great job with it. All right, what's next?
We got Sahil. Can't wait for Gun Superman. My mom passed away 4 years ago. 5 days after her mom, my gran passed away.
Oh,
First movie she watched as a child was the Christopher Reeve Superman, which she loved. She passed away long before my first child was born. I do miss her.
you know, I won't go into it all again, but again, one of the greatest things about movies is they are experiential events. And like most experiences, they're experiences best shared. And when we share those experiences, now, like, again, I've always told, whenever I see the new Michael Keaton Batman, it just brings back my friend Brendan, my best friend growing up, who passed away, and memories of seeing that. Whenever I even crack on Andor or anything Star Wars related, I think of my mom. Because, of course, my mom was the one who introduced me to Star Wars. And that's one of the great things about these movies, that it connects us to people in our lives as well forever. And I'm looking for, here's hoping Superman can deliver for you, man. All right, what's next?
Matt says, saw that Smallville ended 14 years ago. Man, time flies, and we're getting the new Superman trailer tomorrow.
Oh, so this was obviously written the other day.
2 days ago.
Because on yesterday's John Campea Show, we didn't have time to take questions because I was at the USC graduation watching my wife get her doctorate. But hopefully it delivered for you, man. But really, has it been 14 years since Smallville ended? You know what's funny? We don't see Tom Welling hardly in anything. He had that one season stretch on Lucifer
Yeah.
where I believe, who did he play? He played Cain, I think. And he was great in it. Like, he was really good. And I thought, we're about to have a Tom Welling sance. We're about to have a Tom Welling resurgence because of his appearance in Lucifer. And it didn't
Marcus
really.
Pierce.
What's that?
Kane. Marcus Pierce Kane.
Kane, right.
Yeah.
And I thought, we're about to get this huge renaissance of him, and it never really happened. And I don't know why, because he's really good. Anyway. All right, what's next?
Performing artist says, hello. Well, I got 3 out of 4 of my all-time film wishes. Robert Rodriguez and Jim Cameron collab, Alita Battle Angel. The Gilroys write Star Wars. G. Miller do MMFR. Not
Guys,
sure
please don't write in.
I have no idea what MMFR
Please
is.
just don't write in.
and if Jim Cameron directs a live-action Transformers film, I can die content.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? Or no.
No,
I've
it's-
never thought of it before. But now that you say it, James Cameron directing a Transformers movie? I'm not going to say it replaces my number one dream of Steven Spielberg directing a Star Wars film. I've never thought of it. But I think you just hit on James Cameron directing. I'll be right there with you. I am right there with you. I would love to see that. Not as much as Steven Spielberg directing Star Wars, but other than that, James Cameron directing a Transformers movie. Oh my God, the bonkersness of that all. Now I want it. Now I'm not. That's all I'm gonna be able to think about. I want that so badly. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I want that so badly.
Transformers Salvation.
James Cameron is Transformers Salvation, and that's the one thing that I think would get Paramount to greenlight it. If James Cameron gave him a call, hey, I want to do a Transformers movie. Done, and they'll make it happen.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Carlos says, hello, John and crew. I enjoyed the first season of Daredevil Born Again, but I wonder how much longer Daredevil and Kingpin can continue to battle each other without getting repetitive. I would love to see them team up in the future. Your thoughts? I don't know.
Kingpin is an evil, murderous, horrible human being.
Yeah.
I could see something happen where, like, what I thought was a possibility of season 1, where maybe Muse was such a threat that both Kingpin and Daredevil, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing.
Right.
And where they might have to combine forces to defeat an even worse thing. But let's face it, Daredevil season 1, they didn't have one swing of a fist. They didn't go head to head at all in this first season. And that was fine. Like, just even them mentally going against each other. But as of right now, they're spacing it out pretty good because they haven't fought once in this season. So they could probably do it for a few seasons. All right. What's next?
Okay, we got Rakas Baka says, longtime listener from the AMC days here. Do you think we will actually see Palpatine dissolve the Senate at the end of this season of Andor? Of course,
Well, obviously,
we already
this
know.
came in right before, and no. Although they could have, because Tarkin walking into the boardroom,
Does
if you will,
confirm that.
to announce that, it says it just happened. So that doesn't happen for another couple of days after the events of Andor. So clearly that's why it didn't happen there. All right, what's next?
Brandon Salas says, hey, crew, correct me if I'm wrong, but the new Spider-Man Noir teaser that dropped, is that legit? Amazon
Yes.
only posted the first look, but they never posted the trailer. It was leaked. It was originally leaked, and then
Was it originally leaked?
yeah. And
Because
then
it was a full thing.
Yeah.
I never heard that. I never heard it was originally leaked. So my first viewing of it was a full high def, beautiful version on an official, on a reputable platform and outlet. So so it was leaked before that. Anyway, I didn't hear that. So my only experience was it was legit. I kind of dig what I saw, to be honest with you.
Too.
I thought it was pretty fun looking. All right, what's next?
Drill Master Josh with a $20 tip.
Thank you, Drill Master.
Hey, John and crew, what would you think if Tony Gilroy's only condition to returning to Star Wars is if Disney decanonizes the sequel trilogy and he rewrote 7, 8, 9? Imagine if Disney greenlit and supported this. That would never happen.
No.
No, there's no way.
No, absolutely fucking not. No. Listen, as somebody who thinks, let me rephrase, as somebody who understands the absolute wretched shit pile that the prequels are, all of them, I will defend to my last breath that you should not decanonize those either. Canon is canon. You shouldn't be allowed to play with canon. At least not in something like Star Wars, right? I hate the prequels. Pat, they're garbage films. But if somebody were to ask me, should we just decanonize those and pretend like, no, they are Star Wars history. You don't touch them. But you hate the prequels. I know I hate the prequels, but it doesn't matter. They're still Star Wars. They are canon. You don't change them. I got family members that I may not like all that much, but they're still family. And you don't touch my family. John, you don't even really like that cousin all that much. Doesn't matter. Still my cousin. Don't touch him. So no, absolutely not. Because the prequels are far worse than the sequels are. And so, no, you don't touch them. Anyway, all right, what's next?
We got the Batman with a $50 tip.
Oh my God, thank you, Batman.
Well, Batman says, never thought I'd see the day that Disney Star Wars, of all things, would give us an interrogation scene that rivals my own scenes. Every second I thought Deidre was about to be killed by him, somebody gave Ben Mendelsohn his Krennic origin story. I'll
tell you what, we talked about this the other day, but that every moment of that interrogation scene was absolutely terrifying. Like even when he just pokes at her head and the look on her face as he's like jabbing into her head. But it's that last moment when she's like, we need to do this. We need to do that. And he steps back into the room and he grabs her head with both hands. And so we'll just have to figure out a way to do without you. And like, oh, the tension of that scene was so good. Thank you, Ben Mendelsohn. And whatever the name of the actress is who played Dedra, because she was great.
Ultimately, he was outwitted by Tarkin, of course.
Yes, of course. It took Tarkin. And man, Tarkin's a snake, dude. Yeah. Brilliant, but a snake. Oh, anyway. Yeah. All right, what's next?
Browser's Castle. So this was quite... Ray got it.
Sorry.
So this was quite the surprise. I was on the Fandango at Home website buying a couple of movies, and imagine my shock to see The Rust was available for rental or purchase. And apparently, the trailer dropped a month ago. You'd think that would have been bigger news.
Well, I mean, look, here's the reality. Rust... For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, that's the movie where unfortunately the cinematographer tragically died when Alec Baldwin was handed a loaded gun that and was told it was a completely safe gun, that it had been inspected by the weapons master, the prop master, that it was a completely safe gun. So they put it in his hands and it ended up being a live gun with a live round of ammunition in it. And it ended up killing the cinematographer and all the hoopla and circus that revolved around that afterwards. Here's the reality about Rust, though. It was never going to be a theatrical film. Like, that was a small budget, destined and made directly for straight to streaming and straight to VOD. And I think at this point, I don't see how you market that film. I don't see how you do it. You just kind of put it out there and let it do its thing and then let it go. So, yeah, I remember, listen, some news sites, some non-industry news sites, like I remember seeing on CBS News and on CNN, like they're saying, oh, Rust is now making its appearance on VOD. Yeah, I'm not surprised that they didn't do more with it. And I will probably watch it sometime out of curiosity. But again, I'm not really surprised they didn't make more noise about it. All right, what's next?
Danny says, hey guys, went to see Sinners and loved it. Movie was at 7 and started 7:13. Love that. But when I saw Thunderbolts, same theater, start time was 7 and the movie started at 7:30. I now see what John's talking about with AMC being so unpredictable. Do better.
Yeah, again, listen, it's starting movies late is bad enough. How late? The inconsistency of how late makes it even worse. So you can't even time when you want to go to the theater, which really sucks. Again, movies just need to start advertising when the showtime is and when the actual movie starts. Just advertise both times. Sports have started to do it. LA Rams versus the New Orleans Saints, 4 p.m. kickoff 4:07. I think it needs to be a law because we're paying for it. This is a consumer protection law. There should be a law that says you need to advertise along with your showtime. You're starting the pre-show. If that's fine, there should be a law that says you need to advertise to us when the actual movie starts. Simple. And I challenge and I dare have some balls. Every movie theater chain out there. I challenge Regal. I love movie theaters, by the way. I passionately love movie theaters. But I challenge Regal. I challenge AMC. I challenge Cinemark. I challenge Edwards. I challenge all of you. Write me a damn good reason why you shouldn't advertise the actual start time of the movie. Show me a reason how it's bad for the consumer for you to advertise the start time of the movie. You won't. You don't have the balls. You know, and maybe it's not even that you don't have the balls. It's that you know you don't have an answer. There is no answer. It's only good for the consumer for you to tell us what time the movie actually starts, and you won't do it.
And they need to realize they're not in the commercial business. They're in the customer business. They need to please their
Yeah, I agree. You're in the candy
they're not
business
about making
too.
commercials because it looks like they put a lot of pride in their commercials.
Yep. All right, what's next?
Anorak says, I've been contemplating the characters of, I think he says it means Mordo, but it says Morodo and Christine in the Multiverse of Madness. They are the only two sole survivors. I'm curious whether this universe could align with Doctor Doom's team in response to the chaos these multiversal characters bring to other realities. Perhaps Doom could persuade this universe to take a stand against these multiversal travelers. Additionally, there might be a potential revenge plot seeking justice for Miss Invisible's counterpart and the Dark Fantastic 3 team. Emily Blunt as a character, hopefully. I kindly made up the Dark 3 team. Does it exist? But I'm calling shotgun here. The Dark 3.
I honestly don't think there's going to be any reference to whatever number that world was. Where in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, when he goes and finds the Illuminati, whatever world that was, I don't think there's going to be any. I don't think there's going to be any mention of it. I really don't. I don't think any follow up to the Dark 3. I don't think any follow up to that version of Mordo. Listen, we still got the 616 version of Mordo out there, right? He's still out there. And so if you want to do Mordo, then you do that. So yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know this for a fact. I'm just guessing like a fan, like anybody else. But my guess is I don't think you're going to see any reference to that particular world. There's thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of them. So I don't see them thinking they have any need to go back to that one. All right, what's next?
Rob says, just watch the trailer, and I can definitely say this is my Superman. I can feel that Clark is the man, not the disguise Kal-El wears. Ma Kent getting his boots, Pa giving him advice, Clark getting frustrated as he tries to help have me sold.
Yeah, it was great. The trailer was fantastic. I couldn't be happier with it. And I'm looking forward to more. I mean, we're going to get at least one more trailer. I don't expect for at least another month, but we will get one more trailer. But so far, I thought the teaser was perfect for a teaser. I thought this trailer was wonderful. Not the best of the year, but it was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it so much. Again, we were talking a little bit earlier in the show about, you know, the two big challenges most people have with Superman, that he's just way too powerful, nothing can challenge him, and that he's unrelatable. And these trailers have really made a lot of ground in addressing both of those concerns that people often have about Superman stories. And I cannot wait for this movie. Still my number one most anticipated movie of the year. All right. What's next?
Jai says in a two-parter, I don't have the funds to send in a million tip link questions regarding Superman. I'll stick to my key takeaways in no particular order. The engineer will need to die. Lois feels like an old school journalist. I feel, oh, you mean a journalist that actually pushes back questions and just takes statements? 3, I feel the hate from Lex Luthor. 4, Superman is not only fighting otherworldly threats and supervillains, it looks like he's also challenging some modern societal ills and pressures. And 5, Superman's greatest superpower was on display, his conviction and compassion, integrity, and kindness.
Yeah, I like that last one a lot too.
Yeah.
Again, to me,
Well said.
we described it yesterday on the show. To me, that scene where Lois is interviewing him was magnificent, because it shows a Superman who has firmly established his moral North Star. And to him, he is absolutely confounded, confused, and perplexed by the notion of just doing the right thing has suddenly become so complicated. You know, you went as the U.S. representative. I am not a U.S. representative. And by the way, to everybody out there, Superman's American. No, he's not. At best, he's an illegal alien that Trump would probably try to deport. And by the way, he was created by a Canadian. Just want to remind everybody, the Superman was created by a Canadian. At least one half of Superman's creative team was created by a Canadian. Anyway, so saying, I am not a U.S. representative. I went representing myself, and people were going to die. And I stopped something that was going to lead to a lot of people dying. When was just doing the right thing suddenly made so complicated? And his frustration, that I loved that so much, and it spoke so much to that moral North Star and everything. And by the way, engineer needs to die. Technically speaking, all we saw was Crypto hit her. We haven't seen her. If they show her kicking Crypto.
I am firm, John. I am so firm. If she even touches Crypto in a negative way, whatever, I'm walking out. I don't care what.
Then don't go.
Yeah, then don't go.
Then don't go. Remember, this is some little innocent puppy. This is a super powered being, Crypto.
That sleeps on
Crypto will win
Superman's
that
chest
fight.
and looks at him like he's pop. Come on, man.
Crypto will win that fight.
Okay.
Crypto will win that fight.
Okay.
But yeah, I think maybe what if they John Wick it and Lex Luthor breaks in to Superman's house and kills his dog.
Yeah.
By wrapping the cape around his neck. I know you were thinking that.
I wasn't, but now you put it in there.
Yeah. A kryptonite.
All of a sudden,
a kryptonite net.
this Superman movie gets real dark and Superman just starts killing fools for killing a dog. All right, what's next?
We got Superman, dope trailer. Still hoping to see more of the action, but I know there will be a final trailer. I'm glad Lois knows he's Superman because I would question her intelligence as an investigative journalist close to Clark, and glad his parents are alive. Martha seems sweet.
Yeah, I mean, some people are surprised to find out that Lois knows who he is, but remember, this is a Superman
It's established.
that's been doing this for a little bit. And you're right, Lois should figure it out. If she is like one of the world's preeminent reporters, she should figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they're already starting the story there. We don't need to recover that ground.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if that scene that we're seeing, that's her testing Superman, and that's her saying, like, at the end of that, like, you're not ready to take on these big questions, like the way he's reacting to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love the way she still carries a recorder. Just a simple.
Yeah, it was a digital recorder, but I know what you mean.
Digital recorder.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
Pioneer bowed out of making Blu-rays, but they didn't bow out.
They still make audio recorders. All right, what's next?
Let's see. We got that was the two-parter. Reggie, Lex using Metamorpho to make kryptonite to hold soups. Chef's kiss. The little details make me so excited.
Yeah, that, and very few people are talking about that, and that's a really creative use of a character. You know, the one thing they've done with the trailers that I thought was a bad decision, and they did it in the first trailer, and I think they also showed it in the second trailer.
Showed too much?
No, they didn't show too much, but the one thing they showed that I thought didn't make any sense and didn't have the impact, the one time they show Superman gearing up and doing a big punch, he broke a glass window.
Yeah.
Remember, you see he's in that glass and he goes, "Choo." It's like, maybe in context in the movie, that's more impressive, but in just a trailer, it's like, okay, Superman broke a glass window. So, but anyway, understanding probably how Lex is using Metamorpho.
And maybe there's another message behind that. Maybe like being, I don't know.
We'll get more context when we see the movie for sure. All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I love the new Superman trailer. I think what I loved was that it started with a moral conversation about Superman doing a good thing, but not having any oversight. And we know Lois is on his side because they're likely dating, but she still has to ask.
Well, sure. I mean, to say you'll let me interview you as Superman. I mean, that was a great thing. And yeah, I think, look, I mentioned on the show yesterday, one of the things that I love about Man of Steel, which again, I think is the most underrated comic book film ever made, is that it poses the big question, which is, for Superman figuring out his place in the world. Like having the moral compass that he has, having the two fathers giving him different imperatives between Jonathan Kent and Jor-El, and being basically a god. What is his place in that world? I mean, even the great all-time classic film, Superman Quest for Peace. Even in that movie, Christopher Reeves as Superman had to weigh the idea of like, do I have the right to just go around and take away everybody's nuclear weapons? Well, he did it. He decided he did. And he just went and did it. And I kind of like this thing about what should I be permitted to do with my power? That is a great question. And I like that they seem to be addressing that here in this film as well.
I'll tell you something. He knows his place in Lois Lane. Am I right?
Oh,
Am I
jeez.
right?
Yikes says,
Am I right?
I still have faith in James Gunn, but I don't know, man. The Crypto CinemaCon preview was too silly for me, and Core and Sweat felt pretty stiff in this new trailer. I like the action and Nick Holt's vibe. My girlfriend said it looks like a big cartoon.
All I can say is my experience with it is radically different than yours. The crypto stuff didn't feel silly. It felt authentic. Like, I don't know if you're a dog owner. That's what a dog does. And it never took away from the seriousness of it. Superman's laying bleeding and dying. A dog's going to do what a dog's going to do, but it never took away from Superman then sitting up going, crypto. No, it was, oh, take me. Like, that's where the brilliance of James Gunn is. One of the things that makes James Gunn as brilliant as he is his ability to incorporate those two things together at once. Heaviness with some real dark material and heavy consequences with the lighter side of life at the same time. Now, if you're not a dog owner, maybe you looked at that crypto scene, that's just silly. No, that's what a dog would do, man. That's reality. That's a real thing. And then when the dog figures out that there's something wrong with his owner, things get a little serious. I remember when I came home from the hospital, like my dogs were all excited. And then when they figured out there was something wrong with me, and they all of a sudden, after the freaking out, they just calmed right down. They knew what I needed. They cuddled up next to my leg and they just stayed with me because that's what I needed at the time. Like, to you, it hit you as silly. I respect that. But to me, it hit me as something very real. And part of the thing that makes it so fun to me. So anyway, but again, it all hits us in different ways, and it just hit me very differently than the way it hit you.
The only things that there's just one thing really is the kaiju. It just seems so. We got a girl with a hawk and wings, right? Flying around. But why does the kaiju seem so out of place for me? I got to see the movie. I'll hold my judgment, but that's the only thing that really switches it onto, like maybe what they're thinking.
Well, we got to wait to see the movie about why it's there.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
We got, let's see. Yes. Okay. So Suzuki, it's a two-parter, but it's anonymous. Continues there. You and I know movies are subjective. I have a theory on why people get upset upset over different opinions, particularly when it comes to unpopular opinions. Sometimes they're not as unpopular as they seem. They see an unpopular opinion as a threat, fearing the more it's said, the less unpopular it gets. Deep down, they know they're vocal minority. If their take is so popular, why get mad or dissent? You already won, right? I think what it comes down to on either side is emotional maturity.
Look, people who don't understand the subjectivity of film are just mentally weak. Like, I'll just call it like it is. Because here's what happens when people don't accept or understand the subjectivity of film. People like that are the type of people who identify themselves with whether or not they like something, right? We saw this a lot in the height of it's mostly gone now, but back in the height of the Marvel versus DC thing, like 10 years ago, right? I like Marvel. Therefore, I identify myself as I'm the guy who likes Marvel.
That was the dumbest era for...
It was really stupid. But therefore, I dislike anything DC. But then it got one step further from that. Let's just take another movie. Let's take a random movie. I don't know. Let's say, I don't know, a James Bond film, No Time to Die. Whatever. We'll just take that as an example, right? I like this movie, one might say. And that becomes to them a part of their identity. Then what happens mentally is when they hear, say, somebody else didn't like that movie, instead of a normal, healthy, intelligent response of, oh, you just see that movie differently than I do, instead it's, I like this movie and you're saying you don't like it. That is an attack on me. That's how the weak think. Or I hate this movie. And if you say you like it, that doesn't just mean you think differently about the movie. That's saying you're attacking me. That's an attack on me because I say this movie's crap and you're saying it's good. So you're therefore attacking me. And they take it very personal. And therefore you see a lot of the garbage that you see online.
It's like when Mike Coulter is so handsome and John just gets so pissed off.
I just get damn pissed.
No.
Because if he wasn't around, I would have gotten some more of that handsomeness.
All the better if he wasn't,
sense.
you know.
And that's exactly what happens. Whereas if you're somebody who does understand this subjectivity of film, you understand we all just see it differently.
Yeah, but Terminal, you have no excuse.
That's just bullying, John.
You might not even be human.
I mean, so it's like, oh, like somebody wrote in a little bit earlier that they didn't like the Superman trailer. Okay, it hit them differently than it hit me. I don't go, well, then you're just an asshole if you don't like it. That's just then you just don't like goodness. You're just a hater. You didn't like it. Okay, it hit you differently than it hit me. That's it. And then just move on.
I think the more interesting takes from the second trailer is people who actually liked the first trailer but didn't like the second. I love seeing what changed or what happened. I know there's a couple of people out there, me being maybe a little bit one of them, but I don't know. That's always interesting to hear what happened between the two trailers that they didn't like.
Yeah, I think most people are like me in that just really like both. But
yeah, I started watching it a little bit more, and then a lot of the stuff that I nitpicked at with you yesterday when we're eating, I was like, it actually started making sense a little bit more. The kaiju still. What the hell is it doing?
I think that's great. But anyway, listen, we're almost out of time, so we need to fly. Let's get through as many more here as we can.
Yeah, we got, okay. Fanata chat. We've been asked this before, but hi, John and crew. Is there a chance we might get a glimpse of Doctor Doom teased in post-credits for Fantastic Four?
Oh, no, we've only been asked that about 5,000 times.
Yeah, perhaps even a scene showing a team arriving in Earth 616 meeting Sam Wilson.
No. To your specifics, no. Is there a possibility we could get a glimpse of Doctor Doom in Fantastic Four? Yes, the possibility to exist. Do I expect it? No, I don't. I don't, but I could be wrong about that. He could. And if he does, I think it'll just be a little post-credit scene. I don't think anything significant or like, this is the Fantastic Four movie, okay? It's not about the movie. It's not a movie about Doctor Doom coming to our Earth, meeting Sam Wilson's Captain America. No. None of that stuff. Could we get a glimpse of him? Maybe, but I'm expecting that we're not. I don't expect that we're going to see Doctor Doom at all in Fantastic Four, but it is possible. It's a possibility. All right, what's next?
Raymond says, saw Superman trailer, got a feel for where James Gunn's taking us, whose Superman just wants to do good, no politics, no woke or MAGA. Lois represents our conflicted selves. Astronauts said that when you're in space, you don't see borders.
Well, considering what most idiots say woke with, Superman is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. He believes in the fairness of all things and the rights of every human being and every single person. So you are going to see that, and it should be, because that is part of Superman. There's a lot of great comic strips from Superman's history that really speak directly to that. That being as it is, the whole idea of him just wanting to do good and wanting to be able to rise above, all the clamoring that happens, like, when did it become so complicated just to say, hey, I just wanted to stop people from dying, and that's his inability at that point to really rationalize how humanity just doesn't get it. I think it's going to be a key component to this thing. All right, what's next?
We got Future Man who says Andor Rogue One has somehow made the Star Wars original trilogy even better. They hit harder now. Seeing all the dominoes, the sacrifices the rebellion had made that led up to Luke Skywalker eventually taking down the Death Star and the Emperor means so much more now.
Yeah, listen, it makes me look at the original Star Wars movies differently, right? Because in the original Star Wars movies, the greatest films of all time, you never really get the sense of why is this empire so bad, right? You never get a sense of that. It's just that, oh, here's Darth Vader and here are the stormtroopers. Well, they're clearly bad guys, but it wasn't really until Andor. I mean, some of the animated stuff gave us glimpses of it and everything, but it wasn't until Andor that made it feel visceral. That you saw the actual way that the empire was literally oppressing the galaxy. And now that gives whole new context. I'm not saying it changes the original Star Wars. It doesn't. But it gives us as a viewer a whole new context about what's going on. Why was Princess Leia willing to die for this? Why was, the rebellion even get together? It just gives you a whole new context for it. And, oh, God, it's just so good.
All right.
All right, what's next?
20 more here.
Well, we're not going to make it through 20, so let's get through as many as we can.
Sin Vendetta says, I'm with you, John. I love this new Superman trailer. Every bit of it hit in just the right way. Favorite part was when that one random guy goes to help Superman up. Cannot wait to see this in IMAX. Ticket watch when.
I love that too. And you know what that was reminiscent of to me? That one scene in that Spider-Man movie.
Oh, do a flip, Spidey. No?
Oh my God. You live for that.
One. But you remember, I mean, it was a ridiculous thing, but the idea behind it was right, where all the New Yorkers are helping Spider-Man get to it.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, where the people get behind the hero, right? I like that. And I like that it was in the trailer. And so do a flip. Yeah, not that one.
Superman gets up, he's like, where's my wallet?
All right, what's next?
We got John McKinney says, a big problem I have with Disney movies recently is the twist villain trope. And when do you think it began? I say the first Rourke from Atlantis. However, some say Jafar from Aladdin or Clayton from Tarzan. But I don't buy that. Sure, Jafar and Clayton started off as the friend of the hero, but I already knew they were going to be the main antagonists just by looking at them. And even they were nice. They seemed obviously sneaky. Rourke actually surprised me. Well, I mean,
first of all, if you think Disney is the only one that starts off where the bad guy you find out is somebody that is not looked at as the bad guy to start, that goes way before Disney.
Sure.
I mean, that's an age-old thing, but very rarely do bad guys start off as bad guys. Right? Very rarely do bad guys start off as bad guys. And part of storytelling, I think one of the more interesting parts of storytelling is either finding the twist or finding out what led them to that was always kind of interesting. I mean, even if you want to go outside of Disney proper and like even get into Marvel, I mean, you look at the first Iron Man movie, Jeff Bridges, right, is a guy that Tony liked, but he hid part of himself from Tony. And the selfish part, the greedy part, the ambitious part. But that's not just a Disney thing, man. That's age old. I mean, you can make an argument that George Lucas era Star Wars was that, right? They trusted Palpatine. He was their senator. Amidala's known him almost her whole life. Right? So it's not Disney. It's like, this is a long-standing thing about villains being used in films, and yeah, it's definitely not a Disney thing. All right, what's next?
Future Man, for Luthen's backstory, I do wish they had gone the Jedi route, either as a Jedi who is condemned to use the tools of my enemy, aka the Sith, or as a guardian of the temple, like what we saw in Rogue One. I'm glad they didn't because of Clea's arc.
Yeah, listen, I would have been one of the people too, and if having just watched Andor season 1, that I'm thinking Luthen's a fallen Jedi. But the thing is, if you understand Star Wars and you understand more, maybe if you get more into the background stuff of Force user and everything, you can't be a Jedi that does the stuff that Luthen does without going dark side. I know this is an extreme example of this, but like in the best role-playing game I've ever played, which is the West End Games version of the Star Wars D6 role-playing game system. It's like you can be a Jedi character. The thing why a lot of friends of mine wouldn't play Jedi characters is because if you were a Jedi character, you could be incredibly powerful in a Star Wars RPG game. But the problem is, it was very tricky to play a Jedi character. Because every time you did something the game master interpreted as breaking the Jedi code, or evil, or bad, or selfish, or whatever, you would get a dark side point.
Yeah.
And you'd have to roll a dice. And now it was a small chance, but when you rolled that dice, if you rolled under the amount of dark side points you had, your character falls to the dark side and you lose your character. So if you did one selfish thing, you get one dark side point, and you're still safe because you'd roll a 6-sided dice. And if you rolled under the number of dark side points you had, you turn to the dark side. Obviously you can't roll under 1. So if you get 1 dark side point, you're still okay. But once you break the Jedi code, or do something selfish, or do something self-centered, or do something evil or questionable, now you got 2 dark side points. So now you got to roll a 6-sided dice again, and you might roll a 1. Luthen would have had about 7,000 dark side points. Luthen did a lot of, granted, it was all for the greater good, but Luthen, dude, he killed young just for wanting to get his wife and kid to safety. It had to be done. It's Luthen's main thing. But still, Luthen, if we're playing the Star Wars role-playing game, man, and you were playing Luthen, you had about 7,000 dark side points. So that was probably the one big argument against maybe him being a Jedi character, because he would have been straight up, with all the dark things he did, he would have straight up been a Sith at that point. A Sith that would even make Palpatine blush. So yeah, it would have been difficult. Had to be done. All right, what's next?
Blake says, I love the trailer, but I get what Rob is saying. Also, I get wanting to make Superman more relatable, but I just hope they don't take that too far. There's a fine line between more relatable and nerfed. Hopefully they find the balance in the movie.
Well, I just watched Superman one-punch knock out a kaiju.
Yeah.
So I'm okay. Yeah, but you are right. You are right.
Him.
In anything that has a problem, you don't want to swing the pendulum too far the other way at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be cautious of that. So like you want to have humor and joy in your film, but you don't want to overdo it to the point that it gets to Thor: Love and Thunder.
Hulk.
You don't want to do what they did to Hulk. So they do need to find that balance. Make him more relatable, but don't go too far. He's still got to be Superman. And I trust that James Gunn will be able to find that balance. I hope he does at any rate. All right, what's next?
Ray with a $20 tip.
Thank you, Ray.
Says, just finished Andor. Was a letdown, have to say. I guess my hopes got too high when the critics said, you keep saying the critic, but said it was the best Star Wars ever. To me, that was just not the case. Was there great episodes? Yes, but just wasn't nowhere near the best Star Wars ever.
It absolutely was.
I'd be curious what is the current reigning best Star Wars ever for him?
Well, I think everybody will agree the best Star Wars ever is the original trilogy. So when people like me, I'm saying there's the original trilogy. That's never going to be touched. But since the original trilogy, nothing Star Wars has done has ever come close to this quality, this depth of storytelling. It's a masterclass. Now, again, though, it's art. Art hits us all in different ways. If it didn't work for you on that level, it didn't work for you on that level. That's okay. I don't think Blade Runner's all that good, at least the original one. Everybody else does. That's fine because it hits us all in different ways. But absolutely 100% to me, Andor is far and away. It beats the shit out of anything else with the label Star Wars on it since the original trilogy. Nothing else comes close. Not remotely close to me. But that's how it hit me. All right, what's next?
Dildar says, I don't know how you feel about listening to Japanese games with subtitles, but I recommend checking out the cutscenes of the Yakuza Like a Dragon games. It's filled with balls to the wall insanity with great character drama, but don't watch the show on Prime. It's terrible.
Interesting.
I've heard of those games.
I got on a kick a few years ago. For a number of years, I got on a kick. I used to love watching
Cutscenes?
the video game cutscene movies. Now, sometimes they would be 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes they'd be like 16 hours. But I used to love watching them. And I haven't done one of those in a long time.
Which one is he saying to do one of?
Yakuza.
Yeah, listen, whenever I jump on like video game list videos, Yakuzas are always mentioned. But I haven't done one in a long time. I should get back into doing something like that. All right, what's next?
We got Enesby, who says, hey, Jay and crew, apologies if already asked. Have you seen the zoom in on the Wayland Yutani logo in Predator Badlands? Do you think 21st is gearing up for an AVP redux? Led Dan Trachtenberg, crazier still, one of the skulls looks like an ID4 alien.
Yeah, asked several times, and we talked about it on the show. Yeah, listen, the first time I saw the trailer, I didn't see the W logo on the eye. I just saw white eyes. And then I had a bunch of people write in and say they saw the W. I'm like, and first person wrote to me and said, oh, there's a W on it. I'm like, no, there wasn't. And then a second person runs, that's funny. Why do all these people think there's a W on the eye? And then like a third and a fourth people run, and I'm like, is there? And I took a look at it again. I was like, holy crap, it is there. So they're clearly saying they're in each other's universe. Do we get a retry at Alien versus Predator?
Yes, please. I love it. I love it because I wasn't on the ride for the first one. I watched Alien versus Predator. But you know me, I didn't even watch the Alien movies until recently, right? So I'm on the ride for this one, and I love the slow burn that hopefully they're going to retry it because I'm going to be on this wagon this time.
Yeah. So look, I still don't think they will.
Oh.
But it's way more possible than I ever thought it would be. So I wouldn't be shocked if they did. All right. What's next?
We got Mohammed with a $20 tip. And
Thank you.
Hello, John. Congratulations to your wife, Ann, for becoming a doctor.
Thank you.
I'm also graduating with my pharmacy doctor degree this Friday.
Man.
And would like to use this occasion to spit my first tip. My question is, will July big movies cannibalize each other?
I don't even know what's coming out in July.
I don't believe they will. I mean, it's Fantastic Four, it's Superman, and it's Jurassic World.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't think so. They're all scheduled apart from each other. I think what we've learned in the last couple of years is that you don't want to drop two similar audience targeted movies on the same day, but if they're not opening on the same day and they're separated by at least a week, they can all do well. So, I mean, listen, there will be some people, I may choose to go see Superman a second time instead of seeing Fantastic Four a second time. And where if Fantastic Four had opened in a different month, maybe I would have seen Fantastic Four. Yeah, there's going to be some of that. But honestly, I think if anything, they could all help each other. Because again, when you have a great experience, you are more likely to go back to it. So if you go to a movie theater and you see Superman and you have a great time, you are more likely to plan your next night out being a night at the movies and go to see this Fantastic Four movie or the Jurassic Park movie. So there will be some cannibalism, but there's also going to be self-promotion in there too. And I think that'll all balance it all out. I think, anyway. All right. What's next?
We got... Sorry, here. Anonymous says, can you clear this up? Krennic had a rank on his chest in Andor, 6 red squares, 6 blue. Like most, I had to watch Rogue One after Andor Season 2. Rogue One started, and Krennic only had 6 red squares on his chest. Did he get demoted or just a flub? From what I can tell, the blue represent... the blue squares are associated with the Imperial Navy, particularly strategic and technical roles. And the red squares are command functions. So maybe once the Death Star was completed, his technical role was completed and he was just a commander. I don't know.
Also, first of all, the meaning of the placard, the squares, has been changed at times throughout Star Wars lore. they've changed the meaning of them here and there. There are some that have sometimes described them as ceremonial. So depending at the function that Krennic is at, it's almost like a medal, right? It denotes something. Sometimes it's a pure rank thing. And so I think ultimately it's probably some kind of mix. Same thing as kind of like, what's a parsec? You know, how did Solo and the Millennium Falcon do the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs?
Right, exactly.
If indeed parsecs is a measurement of distance, not time, it's just one of those things where it's got to go, Star Wars do what Star Wars do.
Yeah. You got this like High General or Admiral. I thought that was interesting. The Grand Moff and the Grand Admiral are just inverse at the bottom. But like you said, you know, I don't know.
Again, some could be civil, some could be military. Because remember, I don't think Krennic was a part of the Imperial Navy.
Right.
Right. He's a special projects director, which gives him a lot of power, but it doesn't give him power over a Grand Moff.
Right.
So it's just very confusing. But then, hey, listen, there's still a lot of questions going around. Is like, how could Grand Moff Tarkin give any orders to Darth Vader? Anyway, but that's another discussion for another time. All right, what's next?
All right. Anonymous says, oh no, we just read that one. Sorry, Anonymous again. That's kind of funny. Then again, he had it back, guessing it was a flub on Rogue One, or I'm missing something. I think it was continuity and something we missed. And then
also don't forget, like when Krennic first shows up on the farming planet to get Galen Erso,
time jump.
There's a big time jump there, right? So a lot could happen in between that. So add that into the convoluted mix.
Yeah. Anonymous says, love Andor. Are we seeing a slow Star Wars reboot? Will new movies be based upon the OG, but with Gilroy tone, told from a different point of view? An ending. I'm a huge fan. It's been nearly 50 years. If it happened, I'd be okay. How would you feel?
There's no reboot needed. Andor fits in perfectly with the Star Wars lore.
Yeah.
If anything, the lesson here isn't that, well, Star Wars should stop being this and just be like Andor. That's not the lesson here. You can have Star Wars that is fun adventure like Skeleton Crew. It can be the lone gunslinger Western fun like Mandalorian. It can be the more adult-leaning, heavy, more grounded stuff like Andor. You can have all of that in Star Wars because the real genius, who was it, Brendan Fraser? What was the name of the Brendan Fraser movie? I think it was With Honors.
I was going to see Encino Man, but okay.
Where I think it was With Honors, where Joe...
That's
was it that movie where Joe Pesci said, or Brendan Fraser said, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but said, I think the words were said that the true genius of the Constitution, or one of the professors might have said in it, the true genius of the Constitution is that it can be changed. There are very strict rules about what it takes to change it, but that the founding fathers were wise enough to know that we needed to build in mechanisms for it to change. I think the true genius of the universe that George Lucas created was that it's so big and so vast, you could tell any kind of story in it. Something that Kathleen Kennedy many times, and Disney, since it's had Star Wars, has failed to, and even George Lucas himself failed to understand sometimes, is that we're constantly just going back to the same characters over and over and over again, same stories, same environments over and over and over again. The true genius of the universe that George Lucas created was its vastness. And we should be able to tell all kinds of stories in it. So yeah, I think the lesson of Andor is not all Star Wars should now be dark and heavy, but it's that you can bring a level of excellence to your storytelling, whether it's light and fun and fantasy and adventure or drama and heavy. You can do it all because the Star Wars universe is so great. Anyway, all right, what's next?
All right.
Last question of the day.
All right, we got James UK. He's back. What a trailer. The Superman trailer was fantastic. I love the scene where Superman said, hey, buddy, eyes up here.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And then flew up in the air. Wow, I cannot wait to see this trailer in IMAX. July 11th cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, I'm with you. I cannot wait for this movie to come out. I've been looking forward to it for so long. I am really set up for disappointment if it's not good. because I've had a number of movies, especially the last 2 years, that I was super excited about and then went to them and ended up being pretty disappointed. Craven, I'm looking at you, and several others, but I really believe in this film, and I hope it turns out the way I'm hoping.
That wasn't a callback to something when he did that, right?
I don't think so.
Was I missing something? I thought maybe it was something Christopher Reeve maybe said or something like that. And
It was Christopher Reeve-esque, but it wasn't a direct callback.
Yeah, I don't think there was any. I can't recall any Christopher Reeve scene doing that, but
I was just watching reactions, and people seem to get a kick out of that part from the reaction.
I just thought it was a great line.
Unless the scene in Superman is it 2 where he gets in the bar fight.
I don't think he says it.
I don't think it's something like that either.
No.
Okay.
All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show part of your day. Hey, big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Because we didn't take questions on yesterday's show because of the special circumstances, we didn't get through all of them yet today, but don't worry, we'll get all the rest caught up on tomorrow's show. Absolutely. Guys, I want to thank Robert Meyer Burnett for having been here, Ray Ora,
Hey, see you guys tomorrow.
Jonathan Voico.
See ya.
My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.